I'm so excited for this topic. My guest today is Tony Lombardo, who is a regular contributor. If you've been following our lives for a while, you know that we like to talk all things storytelling. And for months, we've been talking about authenticity. Now, both Tony and I work with businesses in different ways in getting them on media, getting them in front of camera. And authenticity is the name of the game. Everyone wants to be their most authentic selves when they're on camera. Yet, whenever we hit record, whenever we say action, the veils start to go up. So we're going to talk about truth and authenticity, what's getting in the way of being your most authentic self when you're on camera, and how you can let go of some of these beliefs. So I'm going to welcome my friend, Tony Lombardo. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, great intro to start this sucker off.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to tell you, I kind of knew what I was going to talk about until yesterday. I had coffee with someone that completely derailed my entire feelings about truth and authenticity. So
okay,
this is new to both of us now.
I mean, I feel like we always have a general idea of what we want to talk about, but the actual words coming out of our mouths are very spontaneous and in the moment, which I think is also how we're able to have very authentic personas on camera. We're familiar with this world, right? We know how the apparatus works. So I think it's easy for us to slip into authenticity. So why don't you then share then what you were prepared to talk about and then what changed for you?
I want to change one word in what you said. Okay. You said we are comfortable in this world or something like that. We are comfortable in ourselves. Yes, that's what happened yesterday. That changed entirely how I feel about what I just said. So as background, when I first pitched this to you as like, this is what I want to talk about, is I had a client where I was working on a script for their video for a commercial, right? And I had interviewed one of the partners and they gave me a bunch of fodder, which was great, which I was going to, make into a roller coaster, as you like to say that I do. And there was one part of the roller coaster where the marketing department was like, no, we can't do that because she didn't say that. But I'm like, no, but she meant that. I'm just putting it into a shape that can be conveyed. And they got hung up on it wouldn't be authentic because that's not what she said. But that doesn't make any difference. It's like that's what was going on in here. I'm just putting it into words that other people can hear and get what she said. Mm-hmm. So the truth of it is she didn't say it, but the authentic part is that's what she meant.
Yes. Okay?
And that's why I was like, oh man, I can't believe they're getting hung up on this. And so you're obviously the first person I text about this.
Yeah, of course. And my reaction, and I love to the context of the story as well, is the fact that it was a commercial and it was the marketing department. Now, I inadvertently, I don't want to say I crap on marketing, but I feel like
on HR, so yeah.
The way that we do marketing these days, I think it's overly complicating communication, right? For me, marketing done well is just a clear explanation of what I do and how you can work with me, my ideal client, what the services are, what the outcome is. To me, that is what marketing delivers. But once you start getting into sales, especially in the digital marketing space, there's a lot of extra stuff that's often thrown in, like SEO marketing, hashtag marketing, playing to the algorithm, that I think is giving people a sense of, well, this one thing that I do for you, this script, this perfect word is going to be the thing that will bring you $1 million in sales. There's something about the way that we approach marketing and sales and communication right now that gives us this idea that we have control over the outcome. But once you realize you don't have any control of the outcome, not only are you able to communicate more freely and more authentically, but your outcome actually gets better than what you anticipated.
Yeah. And what's interesting is it seemed like the next word I want to hear out of your mouth is what you had said to me in that text was about fear. And that there's all these like approved corporate words that won't offend anybody or something you said. You know it more than I do. You jump on this at any second. But then there's this fear of like, well, if we don't say that, then there might be repercussions and yada
Mhm.
yada.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, we were because we went further talking about like the specific of corporate jargon and this kind of like
Yes.
business approved language that we use. I realized since we first talked, because it's been a couple of weeks since we talked about this, and I think for both of us, this topic has evolved. In the work that I do with clients in the group coaching setting, I work with them on ad-libbing reels because I'm like, I'm going to collapse time for you and you're going to share more authentically if you don't pre-write the script. But the next phase of that is getting away from jargon. We often use jargon and technical terms and really polite corporate terms in order to beef up our authenticity. It's the $5 words. And I remember
Right.
going from being an English student in university to journalism. That was a hard shift to, act like you're talking to a 5-year-old, because
Right.
audience that you're trying to reach has the attention span and the understanding of a 5-year-old. So the best language is actually broken down into really, really simple terms. If you want to
Exactly.
be a communicator, you break it down to its dumbest possible or most accessible possible
Yeah, exactly.
level that everyone can understand. But we tend to, and I think that's where when we were talking about authenticity, for me, it's not necessarily about being naked and crying and talking about hardship and, entrepreneurship is really tough. It's about just turning inward. What does my audience need to hear from me right now? And what can I share that is unfiltered, but it's coming from within? So it's communicating from within. You have clear understanding of who you're speaking to, and you're not adding this extra stuff. You're not adding the corporate speak. You're not adding the jargon to sound smarter. And you're also not looking to play the system to try and control the outcome. All of that is fear. It's fear of what this message is going to do and where it's going to land. But once
Yes.
you release the fear, so I talked to a colleague of mine a couple of weeks ago, Bianca Osborne. So she has a fantastic story. So 2 years ago, she, started leaning into this new content. She does glucose tips for the girls. So she talks about how to eat better to balance your blood sugar. And she did a TikTok. It was like maybe week 2 that she was on the platform. And she says she went to bed with 200 followers and woke up with 200,000 followers. Like it went viral overnight. What she said though in that conversation was that in the moment, because you never know what is going to go viral, you never know what piece of content is going to take off. She said, when I came up with the script, it was something along the lines of, if you're waking up in the middle of the night to pee, it might actually be your blood sugar. She said, those are just comments that I was making offline. I was having these conversations with people in real life, but I wasn't having them on social media. And once I just collapsed that barrier and shared the stuff that I'm authentically sharing in my real life, it took off. And her business has taken off since then. Since then, she now has a combined following of more than 300,000 followers. I reached out to her a year ago because I wanted her to be a client. And she's like, Tara, I don't need your services. Like, I'm
Awesome.
actually really good on my own. I don't need TV. I don't need brand partnerships. And I was like, dive further into this.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. But
to what you
but
just
she,
said,
yeah.
because I am a writer at heart, much like
Mhm.
yourself,
Yeah.
and it's only I realized in this last project where I took the interview that I took from them that was very natural and conversational and created a tight 60 seconds, and we had to send it back to them for approval, and they got in there and added all their jargon.
Yeah.
And then I had to sit down with the marketing department, like, this is why you hired me. People
Yeah.
don't talk like this. No
Yeah.
one uses the word additionally. Like, it's just, that's how people write. And so, like, to your point about like jumping to journalism, it's like, we talk in short bursts. There's short sentences. And so like, I had to reshape it. And like, you have to trust me that this is how you talk.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
even in the shooting, I had to like remind them, like, remember when you gave me this line? Like,
Yeah.
in a perfect world, I could have recorded their conversation, but it would have been a mess it was just too stream of thought to have a tight 60 seconds. So I had to go
Yeah.
through this process.
Yes.
The authenticity part of the whole thing is what I had this conversation with this. She's got the Bolin Institute. She's a quantum healer. All right.
Mm.
Liz Bolin. And I was talking to her about this yesterday, and then she says, well, truth is subjective, but authenticity you can't fake. And she went
Yeah.
into it in this, and as much as for years, I've hated to admit that truth is subjective, but it totally is. And I've always used that. There was that meme of the two people looking at what looked like a 6. One of them saying it's a 6 on the
Yeah.
floor, and the other one saying, no, it's a 9. And it
Mm.
says both of these people are right. And
Mhm.
my argument was always like, no, you could ask the person who painted that symbol and ask them what it is.
Mhm.
And that would be the truth. But I'm wrong, because to that person it is a 6, and to that person it is a 9, and to that other person who painted it, it is a sideways fish or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
and that's it. And you can think about any bifurcated issue in politics and anything, like, no, I'm right, no, I'm right.
Mm.
That is your truth, and there's no way around it. Authenticity is completely different, because
Mm.
when you appear fake on camera, it's because you're not vibrating at your, like, your core value, your actual soul. So
Yeah.
that's why when you and I just get on here and bullshit, that's why I say we are comfortable in ourselves. You and I can talk about story for hours, and we have,
Yeah.
because there's no faking this.
Mhm.
It's part of our core. So I
And
think
I
that
think
that's where I'm talking about to clients, is like, let's find your core, because you can't mess that up. It's like I say,
yeah.
no, you can't play Tara McEwen better than anybody else. Like that, you can't mess that up. That's what I was saying to these partners, is like, you can't mess this up. You are this person.
Yeah.
And it's only now that I was realizing I'm talking about authenticity.
Yeah. What you're describing though is so counter though to how we think of promotion, right? Especially in the business space. I'm doing a workshop next Monday called Business Boosters, and I'm talking about this exact same thing. So basically, it's using social media and understanding the client journey and what you're sharing, how that moves the clients forward through the client journey. My approach, so many people would think of, and of course, in my own business, I've done this exact same exercise too. Like, what is my client avatar? Who is this person? I'm always describing myself. It's a woman, middle-aged,
Oh,
starting her own business, building an agency. Like, I don't get further than what am I dealing with and how have I solved this problem. But that was sort of the client avatar and the pain points. So then all you're doing is sharing the client avatar and the pain points, and you're using that to dictate your content. Well, you know who else is doing that? Your competition, who has the
mm,
exact same client avatar and is doing the exact same pain points that you are. But when you turn inward and you look at, well, who specifically am I? What am I specifically sharing? And what is my unique point of view and experience? And how have I interpreted what I do for clients? That is the easiest way to stand out from the crowd. If you're frustrated with sounding like everyone else, it's because you're sharing from this point of view of everyone else. You're sharing from the client.
oh, yeah,
Point this out with the Luke Skywalker. Your client knows their pain point. They know what they're dealing with. You don't have to deliver that. The example I'm going to use too are the personal injury lawyer commercials. I watch a lot of, of course, DTV and NBC. They all sound exactly the same. They're offering the same services, the same results. And I'm like, if I ever get into an accident, I have no idea who I'm going to end up calling the one from Buffalo because I've confused his ad with the one from Toronto. They sound
yeah,
exactly the same. But it's because they're starting at it from this external point of view. But authenticity, again, it's from sharing from within. And you're just taking it to the world or to the universe. And then the
yeah.
people who are aligned with that, they find you and they come to you. It can actually be that easy that you just say, this is what I do, this is what I offer. And then your ideal clients come to you.
You know, because this project that I'm talking about was literally from the start, is like, hey, we have all these corporate professionals, but we want to humanize them.
Mm,
And so, and what was really interesting in all of the interviewing and all the scripting, what came out is like, the job we do is like literally adding and subtracting sort of
yeah.
complication. The rest of it is, how do we get to know the client? How do we get to get in? How do
Mhm.
we get them so that they trust us and that we can look out for them because we can already anticipate things and blah 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 blah. It's like, well, that's you being authentic. That's like all the nuance, the actual, like. And then I was like, a photographer, like literally this job is like knowing lighting ratios. The
Yeah.
rest of it is like, who are you? How do I pull that out of you? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the whole thing is like the human to human connection.
Mhm.
You can't fake it. And I've often talked about like perceived authenticity. And it's like
Mm.
you can smell it from a mile away when
Mhm.
someone's not being true to who they are on a camera.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. They've been focus grouped. Their feelings have been A/B testing. What is the right way to feel in this
Oh
moment?
my God. Yes.
I think you described that the objective, like the desired outcome from the client was an authentic share. But when it
Exactly.
came to, and you did what you do brilliantly, you find the person, you capture the person, they're now on celluloid and you're packaging their story. And then as soon as it comes time to hit them, they're like, oh, no, 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 this is not what we look for at all. Like that's just them hitting their edge and not
Oh,
realizing
wow.
this is the human, this is the authenticity that you were asking for in the beginning, but it doesn't look like how how you think authenticity should look like.
Right.
Yeah.
I honestly was like, I can't let you derail this
Yeah. So how did you fight
because
back? Or
I
did
just
you?
said, this is why you hired me.
Okay.
Is we're going from conversational to how they write, and it's the people don't talk this way.
Yeah.
And we recorded all of the initial interviews. And like you can watch those interviews and like that is not how they talk. I am just packaging it together into a tight 60.
Mhm.
So it was kind of a it was kind of a, like a I gotta have I gotta have a talk with you, one of those kind of things. But luckily, the marketing department was just like, yes, thank you, okay, great, perfect, and everything just magically somehow worked out that we got what I had intended to do, which is what they
Yeah.
intended to hire me for. But it was a real bump in. I could see where their truth and authenticity kind of hit some sort of mental block, and talking to you was like, yeah, that is it's fear, it's jargon, it is not being in line with your own self of who that
Mhm.
is. Because once they started talking about their hobbies and all their favorite foods and all this stuff, it's like, look at you. You will totally have a conversation with somebody else about Disneyland. I guarantee someone else will talk with you about it because that is your thing. Like,
Yeah.
and that's being authentic. And like you could just hear the rise in their voice. Actually, you know what? Funny story about me. This was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I met somebody who I don't know even to this day what she did, but she asked me what I do. And I was at this point in my career where I was like, well, I shoot like product and I shoot a lot of furniture and I shoot people. And then she said, and then I went on, and then she's like, did you notice how your voice completely changed when you started talking about people? It's like, and she said, don't fool yourself. You like people.
Mhm.
And all the other stuff was just you trying to get work.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, like you're right.
Wow.
Given
Yeah.
any, there's no choice. There's no choice. Given if you're like, hey Tony, you want to shoot a product today, or you want to shoot people? Like, of course I want to shoot people. That's what I
Mhm.
love doing and talking
Mhm.
about it. And I can't mess this up because I'm being so authentic to myself. But
Yeah.
I could totally, you could smell a rat when I'm
Yes.
talking about whatever else other things I was shooting.
Yeah. I love too that the person, that it was someone else observing. We never see
Has to
ourselves
be
the way that other people see
always.
us. I think if authenticity is what you're striving for, this is actually why you hire people like me and Tony. Like you actually can't, you're always going to hit that edge. You're always going to hit that, oh no, I should actually say this. I should actually be this. You need to work with people like us who are, a little bit more comfortable being perfectly imperfect and also know how to craft authentic stories that are going to land with an audience. You do need that outside person. But I also love too how it was your body language. Because again, that's how authenticity doesn't lie. Your body language doesn't lie. Your voice knows how to inflect naturally. You actually don't have to train that of all
Right.
the speakers coaches out in the world. Same with body language. All the speaking coaches who are like, "Oh yes, you hold your the plate in your hand." No, your body knows how to act naturally. The key to authentic presentation in any kind of public speaking is just get comfortable speaking in that scenario. Like I'm well aware I am alone in my den talking to my computer, but I've done this enough times that I practice. This is just the normal way of having a conversation with Tony Lombardo. Like, this is totally normal. So I'm
Yeah.
able to then be animated and have my hands flying all over the place because that's how I talk naturally. That is, you can't train authentic movements. You just get comfortable talking in these different scenarios, in these different spaces.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
remember in the dawn of the Zoom era,
Mhm.
I said to him, like, you need some media training. And I can't give it to you because it's not my bag, but it's like you need to learn how to talk to a little dot. Like,
Mhm.
it's weird, but it comes off.
Yeah.
And um it's exactly that, is that you know how to be you. You're in when you're comfortable and you're jiving, it's because you are in vibrational line with who you really are.
Mhm.
That's the bottom of what uh, my new friend Liz Bolin said to me, and I was like, ah, that's crazy.
She
Yeah.
she probably know because for people when they study frequencies in the human body, authenticity is the highest frequency.
Oh, no
People
way.
think that it's love, people think that it's, other feel good feelings, but authenticity is the highest. And I heard that from my coach, Hannah Khan. And I was like, of course, authenticity is the highest. It is the hardest to reach. You have to let go of all the layers and all the barriers of, well, this is how I'm supposed to be perceived by other people. It's a whole inner critic. So in terms of really, really knowing yourself and doing that work, of course, authenticity is the highest because it requires so much inner work, introspection. I think is the word I'm looking for.
For
It
sure.
requires so much of that in order to be your authentic self on a public stage, whatever that public stage looks like.
So, are there exercises for this? And I use that as a very loose term, but other than all I've ever said is, like, you just got to get used to it. You just got to get used to being on stage. You just got to get used to talking to a camera, and eventually
Hmm.
you'll get comfortable with it. But who's got 10 years to spend on that?
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
in the speeding up business.
Getting this is where I've also started using the tagline that the work that I do is where PR meets personal development. Because so much of the coaching work that I do with people is about exploring their thought leadership. So these are some of the exercises that we did in the on-camera confidence, where I had people track their timeline, right? So connect with whatever subject matter you want to
Mm,
share,
I
and
remember
then
that.
give a timed limit and trace back all the moments in your life where that idea or that subject has presented itself to you. And there's a woman she's done that exercise like 3 times, and she's like, every time I get a new deeper understanding of why I love travel so much. So it's more stuff like
Oh, I
that. So
remember her. Yeah.
and I think a lot of people, when they think of like journaling for in terms of self improvement or self development, it becomes a place of self punishment. These are all the things that are wrong with me. These are the things that I'm going to do. I got to start, I got to run 5 days a week. I got to eat more vegetables. I got to do all this stuff.
I got to track my water.
Yeah, exactly. The approach that I take is more, well, who am I? Who and like and just being aware of who am I, how do I want to serve, especially in the context of the business, because the business is always evolving. And so it's just being in conversation with yourself of who am I, why am I occupying this space. I'm thinking specifically of thought leadership and building a business brand. So it's who am I, what can I offer, how can I serve. And the more I do that, I went from, I mean, my 3-second pitch is still, I get you on TV. But in the last 2 or 3 months, I've really put my focus on social media, because I've started calling it the full circle media strategy, because the stronger, more authentic, more expertise you share in your social media, that is what leads to TV appearances, podcast appearances,
Ah,
and engagements, in addition to pitching yourself out there. But as you're pitching yourself, anyone who's looking to book, they're going to look for you online. They're going to look for and check your credentials and your credibility on your social media. If you're not showing up as an expert in this space, then that's going to affect whether or not they book you for whatever it is that you're pitching yourself for. So some clients who lean really, 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 really heavily into sales, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of having a hard time pitching out. Can you throw in some like editorial content so that they can see that you are also editorial. Because I think one thing people don't realize, especially if you have been booked a few times on the show, your brand becomes the show's brand when you're on that show. And the show, especially if it's a high profile show, they are very keenly aware of who they are putting on their stage. So if there's something about your personal brand that is rubbing them the wrong way, you're not getting booked.
Right.
So
That's what,
really,
remember
mm-hmm.
when my prop auction house client was being vetted for the Today Show,
Yeah.
pretty high profile daytime talk, and I had asked you, they want to see a sizzle reel, and you're like, they want to just see how he is talking to other people. And that was the sizzle reel I put together, was him interviewing other people and having conversations with other people, see how he flows. And he got on and he did great.
Yes.
So yeah, you don't want to get a loose cannon, I guess, on live TV.
But especially if you're pitching yourself to news or as a subject matter expert. I mean, TV is accused of being fake news all the time. So they're vetting their guests constantly because they have to then stand behind you and your credibility.
Yeah.
So you're presenting yourself. Well, I'm a subject matter expert in this space, but on your social media feed, it's completely different stuff. You do have to actually be one and the same.
So
again, it comes down to authenticity.
Does this scale? And I mean this from a standpoint of, like, the project I just worked on, I was working with individuals in this large firm. But what came out was, and this was totally unprompted because I interviewed them all separately, unaware of each other, they all came out with the same values of this firm. And I was like, wow, we've got so much overlap that this thing is becoming like one big story. You guys are all on the same page with something. And so that's how I took it. I feel I stumbled into that, but like, can that be created? And when you're talking about a larger brand, I don't know. I'm not like,
yeah. I
because
mean,
I don't know, I usually work with individuals, and
yeah.
I don't know.
I think with that, as you build out teams, because the brand isn't the collection of individuals is the brand. So of course they have to have the same values. And I think that whether or not that was by accident or by choice, and did they create the company together? Because oftentimes, yeah. So I think
the
that's
company existed. These people filtered into it. Maybe it's just they aligned with it, and that's why they're there. It could be, but for my purposes, it made for a great story and made my life easier that they were all on the same page. So I'm not going to complain.
Yeah. And I think that is key. So anyone who is, because I'm solopreneur and I'm looking to build a social media agency. So the values of McEwen Media, I know what they are. It is important for me now to make sure that the values of McEwen Media are known to anyone that I bring in to work on client work with me. So I think that's just, but it's authenticity, it's consistency, which is so key, especially in social media. I think a lot of people confuse consistency with frequency. You can show up as many times as you want to during a week or a day, but for a business, especially a business brand, you want to focus on being consistent with your message, who you are, what you value, how you can work with clients, and then be consistent with that presence on social media, and then have that be present throughout the client journey. So when they sign up for a workshop, you're that same person talking about the same thing. When they're onboarding, that you want that consistency to run through, because that's also how you get referrals and how you build your business. So it really, again, it comes down to the authenticity, bringing it back to who you actually are. Because if I had to think in terms of the SEO word choices that I used in this chat to make sure that it goes super, super viral, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm about to go on a rant of SEO writing, but I think SEO and hashtag strategies have just, again, complicated, clear writing. Anytime someone is explaining, with SEO writing, you look at what keywords your ideal client is looking for, and you use those in your copy. And I'm like, okay, so it's just about understanding what my client's looking for and using that language.
Yeah.
That's clear writing. That is just just getting to the point and speaking the way that other people speak. That's it.
No,
Why do I need to then research this? Anyways, I'm going off on a
I
tangent. I'm
believe
showing my age.
I want to close with this is I believe you have met my friend Holly from Monarch Social Media, I
Yeah.
believe. And a thing that you just put together what she says in a different way for me that she often says to her clients is because she's a strategist,
Mhm.
like I can get you to this level with the content you have, but if you want to get here, you need to get Tony to make you some content. And I think
Mhm.
that here is the bringing out the authenticity part. I've always just
Yes.
thought it's just great stories, but maybe great stories come from being authentic is what
Mhm.
we're getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think great stories and a great storyteller knows how to make it a safe space for the authenticity to show up. Because as you pointed out with your client, the humans will always knock it down. We will always get in our own way.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah,
I'm happy with what we've come up with today for sure.
me too. And I'm
Yeah.
only just now noticing your Father's Day cards behind you.
Oh yeah, yeah. My kids did some drawings there. Yeah.
Very cute. All right. Well, thank you for truth on authenticity. We went on a journey, and I thought that, as usual, brilliant stuff that we covered. So let's
Love it.
give ourselves a break for the summer, maybe, and then come back swinging with more insight.
Okay. All right,
All right.
buddy.
Bye.
Talk soon. Ciao.